Okay, now I want to start with creating some of our blocks. So I have the blocks already drawn for you, and I have given you some dimensions. You will not need to put the dimension lines on your blocks. They're there just simply for you to, as a reference whenever you draw these. And you may not have to draw them all because some of them, like the GFCIs, you can just um, copy this and paste it down. You can make maybe this as a block and then just put a regular duplex receptacle in and add your text with it. It does not have to be part of the block, or you can make it part of the block. It doesn't matter. Blocks are a lot easier to work with whenever you're ready to do your drawings. So I like creating a bunch of blocks so we can just add them in. But you can copy and paste, and you can modify these blocks to do like a switch receptacle has this filled in, and I'll show you how to do that. And you can fill that in with just a regular block. So I'm going to start with this duplex receptacle. It's probably our most common. It's probably the one we use the most. And then we'll use that one to modify it to make the rest of these. So I give you the dimensions. So we're going to start with a 4-inch circle. So we're just going to click on a circle. We're going to come out here somewhere and we're going to draw a circle. Now that is a 4-inch diameter. It's going to ask you the specific radius. So we're just going to type in 2 for a 2-inch radius, which gives us a 4-inch circle. And now you notice that these lines here are 7 3/4 and they're 2 inches apart. So what I want to do, and I'm going to zoom into this a little bit, so I want to draw some lines to help us orient our two other lines coming out of that. So I'm just going to draw a line, and I'm going to start at the center of our circle and go over 1 inch. So if I type in just 1 and hit enter, I will put my line at 1 inch. And I'm going to go back in the other direction, and I'm just going to type in 2. So that will give us a 2-inch space in between our two lines. And then I'm going to come in the vertical direction, and I'm going to go 7 3/4. I'm just going to type in 7.75, which would be 7 3/4. Now, and then I'm going to hit escape, but our line is not exactly where we want it. So I'm going to select our line, and then I'm going to hit move. Then I'm going to go to the end point of this line, and I'm going to drag it straight down till we get to the intersection of our circle. And that will be our first leg of our receptacle. Then I'm going to highlight that line again, and I'm going to hit copy this time. And I'm going to go from one side of our original line to the other side of our line, and that will be our duplex receptacle. And I'm going to delete these lines that we used to separate to get our spacing correct. So that is how we're going to draw our duplex receptacle. Now, before we get carried away, what I want to do is make this as a block so that we don't have to redraw it every time. We can just select our blocks from our block table up here and insert that into our drawing. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to highlight the receptacle that we just made, and I'm going to hit create. And I want to call this a duplex receptacle. And you notice my typing has not got any better since I started this course. And I have the object already selected, so you should not have to select this. You should have nothing else selected here. But you should have it converted to a block, and it should be allow for exploding, because we may want to modify it. So if we don't allow it to be exploded, we cannot modify it later. And then we're going to specify the point, and this is on screen. This is what we mess up on a lot of times, because when we click OK, we're not quite done yet. The block has not really been defined. So we are defining this as a block, but we have to give it a base point on the screen. So we have to hit OK, and you notice we got our cursor here. So I want to select the end of our line here, and that will be where our block will be added to our drawing. So I'm going to select the end point, and now our block is made. And you notice when we click on it, that point that we just selected is where that block is going to be moved from. And you also will notice if you go to our insert blocks, we should have a duplex receptacle there. And you click on it and drag it, and it will go to that point that we had it selected as whenever we selected that block. So So once we have our receptacle created as a block, we can create the rest of these as blocks, or it's fairly easy to modify this to some of these others. So you can choose whether you want to make them blocks or if you want to create them on your own. But I will show you how to make our single receptacle out of this, and I'll show you how to do the switch receptacle. The switch receptacle is really easy to modify. You don't even have to do it. So I'm going to zoom into this to show you how to make the switch receptacle first. You come up here to the top, and this is a fill. So we're going to fill this area. But I don't want to fill it as a hatch. I want it to be solid. So I'm going to click on the solid. And that is all there is to do to make that as a switched receptacle. So now we're going to make our GFCI. So we can make a block for that, or we can just use a double receptacle and just add our text to it to make it a GFCI. We're just going to click on our text, and we're going to drag a box down here, and we're just going to type in GFCI. Now this should all be in capital letters. Whenever we do text in a CAD drawing, it should all have capital letters. So then we're just going to highlight that, and we're going to come up here to make it a little larger. Half inch is not enough. So I'm going to do like 1.5 inches. So I'm going to type in 1 and then a space. If you don't put the space in there, it'd be 11.5. So we've got 1 and then a space and then a half. So that will be our new text. And then we have to hit enter. That is why we leave out a lot of the time. So if you notice that the text hasn't changed. So when we hit enter, then it makes it larger. So then we can see the text. And then if we just click off of it, the GFCI will be next to our duplex receptacle. Now, if you do want to make this a block, I would suggest taking this and moving this a little closer. It doesn't have to be oriented exactly, but just somewhere close to that so we know that it is a GFCI. And then if you want to make that a block, you can select the whole thing. If you want to make just the GFCI a block, so you can add that in there, but it's pretty easy to add when you do your drawing, so you don't necessarily need that as a block. You don't necessarily need that as a block either, because it's really easy to make that a block. And then the protected is the same thing. So this would mean that the power would come to the GFCI, and then you'd have a wire going from the GFCI to the protected circuit. So this is protected by this GFCI. So we made a switch receptacle, we made a GFCI receptacle. I'm going to show you how to do the range receptacle. I'm going to show you how to do our 240 receptacle first. Just add an extra line in that. But you cannot just copy and drag this over. This line here is going to be a little longer. So I'm going to zoom into this one. I'm going to zoom into this one. I am going to zoom into this one. And then I'm just going to draw, a line, a few just reference lines across here so I know how long to make it. So we want to make it the same length. And I'm going to draw a line from the center of our circle to the intersection of the circle. And then we can either draw another line or just lengthen this to the center of that line and delete that line. So that is a really easy way just to make a 240 3-wire receptacle. And then if we want to do our range, we will just add our triangles to that. Again, I will zoom into this to show you how to do that. We will draw a line from the end point of this to where it is. We're going to go over that and then up. And that's really simple. We're going to hit this escape. And then again, we'll fill it. So we'll click on the fill button, and we may have to fill 2 sides at a time, and it will be a solid. We got to do one more step. I want to trim some of these lines out of that. We'll have to explode this first because it's already a block. And when we made that block, we made it so we can't explode it. So we will trim the inside of these lines. So now we have a receptacle for a range. And that should be all of the receptacles that you would be able to modify. You can modify this. You would just have to trim these 2 lines on the outside and then draw a line in the center of that. I think you'll be able to figure out how to do that. So we're getting to the point now where I want you to start figuring out how to do some of these blocks and how to do some of this stuff on your own. So I would like for you to create these blocks, or at least be able to modify them to get them to do what you want. Okay, so we made our receptacle blocks. Now I want to show you how to do some of our wiring blocks. And our receptacles are going to be in the components, but then I want to do some of this wiring. I want to add that in our wiring layer. You should have the wiring label. I will let you choose the color you want, but I'll just warn you, if you do too dark of a color, it doesn't show up here very well. If you do too light of a color, it's not going to show up over here when we do our layout. So you have to kind of pick a color that is so that you can see on both sides. So as you notice here, our home run is 2 feet over and 1 foot down. And then we got an arc going from one side to the other. And then I have a 2 conductor symbol here. So this would be like a 12-2 or 14-2 or some kind of wire. And this dot would mean that it's with ground. And then I have a 3 conductor. So this would be like a 12-3 or something that might use for a 240 volt service or for a 3-way switch. So we can probably make both of these blocks, and I'll show you how to make the block and add it into our wires as we go. So I'll show you how to do the home run, and then I'll kind of let you figure out how to do the lights on your own. This is a can light. It's just got 2 circles, and it's very simple. And then the LED light is just the can light with an LED inside it. But I will show you how to do the home run in these 2, and then I'll let you figure out how to do the rest of them. These lights, though, they should be in the lighting layer, and this should be in the wiring layer, the wiring label. So we're going to start by just drawing a construction line. We're going to come over 2 feet. So we're just going to draw a line. I'm going to type in 2, and feet is just a little colon. And I do have a keyboard on here to show you where this is. So this is just feet. If you want inches, you have to hit shift and then the quotation mark just for inches. If you don't hit shift and hit this, that is for feet. So we want to come over 2 feet, and then we're going to hit enter, and that's going to be our line. So 2 feet, enter, and then we're going to come down just 1 foot and hit enter. So that will be our lines to lay out our arc. So whenever we do this arc, I want to come up here and I want to select, this may not be selected for you. You may have just a 3-point arc. I want to do a start, end, and an angle. So select a start, end, and angle, and then we're going to start at this point, we're going to end at this point, and then we're going to have our angle, and it's just going to be perpendicular to our line. So that will be our, this is showing our wire for our home run. Now we want to do a little arrow on the end of this home run so that we can tell that it is a home run and not just a wire. So again, I'm going to zoom into this, and I'm going to select just a wire, and I'm going to come out, and now we made this on our horizontal plane. So I'm just going to make this a wire that's going to be 2 inches long. So again, I'm going to hit shift and then the colon and then hit enter. So now we have the start really of our arrow. So to finish it, I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to do the mirror image of that, and I'm going to select the end point, and you notice it puts the arrow down on the other line, on the other side here. So if you get it like perpendicular there, then you can draw your line. And I do not want to erase my source, so I'm going to hit no. So then I'm just going to make another line here to complete my arrow from the end of this to the end of that, and then we'll do another fill, and I'm going to fill my the solid. I'm going to fill my arrow. So that will be our arrow for our home run. And you can make this as a block, but I would like to add our wire numbers here so we can distinguish what line it is. And I have given you some dimensions in that, and I'll show you how to draw that real quick. So we're just going to come out here and we're going to draw a line 8 inches long. So just type in 8 inches. And then I want a 2-inch separation between these really 3 points. So what I'm going to do is come up here and draw me a line. I'm going to go from the center point of the line we just drawn and drop in 2 inches. And I'm going to do another 2 inches for our circle. And hit enter. So that will be our 2 lines. And in this first line, that's going to be half of 8. So I think we can figure out that's going to be 4. That will be the end point here. And again, I'm going to zoom in to see where that is. So we're going to go in and up, and that's going to be. So then all we have to do now is add our circle out here at the end. If you go back to our dimensions area here, we can find out that the dimension of that circle should be a 1/2 inch radius. So that's just pretty simple here. You just click on the circle and you click on the end. So a 1/2 inch radius would be just 1 divided by 2, and that's all there is to that. And then I do want to fill that in with a solid circle, and then we can delete our 2 construction lines, and that will be our 2 conductor wire. And again, I was just making this a block because we will use this a lot in a lot of our wires. So our home run will be about the same dimension every time, but sometimes we go from a light to a receptacle or receptacle to receptacle, and we will have to make those wires individual links. But I will show you how to put our conductor size, what conductor we need, into our home run here. So again, you will make this into a block and call it maybe a 2-wire conductor. I'm just going to highlight this now, and I'm going to move it. And I want to move this to the center of our arc. And you notice it's not like oriented correctly. So again, I'll zoom into this so that we can see it a little better. But what I want to do is highlight our home run. And yours, if you make this a block, that will all just be one point. And you select on this. So I want to go to rotate, and I'm going to click this point right here that we're going to rotate it from. And then I want you to rotate it where the center of the circle is just in your line. And we can eyeball this as best we can, and then that will put our arc in our line. It'll be in the center of our radius, so that will really complete our home run. And that will be the way we draw. And you can save this as a block for your home run, and I would save this as a block as well, so that we can add that to some of our other circuits. And then it'll be really easy just to add another line here for our 3 conductor, and I would go ahead and make a block for this for our 3 conductor. So go ahead and try to make these blocks. You'll make one for the lights, the can lights, the LED lights, and you might make one for the switch. This is just a switch 1. This is 1.5 inches, and that is 1 inch. So whenever you do your text, you'll make the S 1.5 inches, and then the 1 a 1 inch. So we'll have a little sub thing there, and that is just for a single pole switch. Later on, we will do a double pole switch for maybe a 3-way circuit or something, but that will be how we do our single pole switch. So we'll make these blocks, and then I'll show you how to draw some of our drawings, and then I'll let you figure out how to do the rest.